How's it going, everyone? Welcome. Eulier Gonzalez here. So into this video, I want to look at the data fetching model or section here on the React hooks model taught by Josh Komewa, software engineer that previously worked at Khan Academy, and after that the Gatsby. So Khan Academy was one of the first large companies to ever use React at scale. And the idea of today's video is look at the way of how do we fetching data without React. Plain simple, the vanilla way of doing this, and that is, well, actually, with the help of, let me see, this one, with the help of Claw to help me how to create now the entire process. In other words, I need to create an HTTP server, and then from the browser, when I navigate to that route, I would like to now send this form here and then submit some information so I can capture that on the server and see how that works without React. That's the whole point of today's video in this next 20 minutes. Let's get into this. All right. So what I want to do is to show real quick the HTTP form. That's right. Take a look. Take it. Let me actually rename this and say, hey. All right. Let me put this on top of this. And there you got it. All right. So so if I want to, so the sequence here is, I would like to now build a Node.js server that allow me is to serve this content. I can use now Claude to do so, but I prefer to actually do on hands. I prefer to do that on foot, so I can know how that things work. All right. So let's get into this. So the environment here is now this. I can say touch. So the sequence will be this. I'm gonna create a file, and then I'm going to have access to the interface that Node.js expose. So in combination with Typescript, which is something I'm going to apply here, I do want to now create is this basic HTTP server, right? So the sequence is, hey, I want to create a file. I want to initialize a Node.js application, and then create a file. Let's create the environment, or let's going to initialize the projects on Node.js. Specify that I also want to use this Typescript, right? And then define is the Typescript file that allow me to define is the HTTP server. And also I need to create is an index HTML where I'm gonna use as a way to send these documents over the cable. So when I am the browser and navigate to that local host, I can see that form and then send the data here. So there's a couple things that I would like to write it down before doing anything, which is part of the practice of anytime that you want to build or implement or identify a problem. This sequence is one of the things that I really love about the engineering process, or the systematic way of figuring out a solution or a solution to a problem. So let's get into this. So let's gonna create this markdown here and say is the project overview. So project overview, right? .md, or just a singular readme. I prefer to do that. So readme.md. Now that I have this, I can have access to the readme and then describe what we're gonna do here, right? So this is the HTTP server to illustrate how to fetch data from an HTTP server using HTML form. Pretty simple, right? Pretty simple. So the steps, right? You can say here steps, right? Steps, the step one, initialize the project, the node project, and then two, you say install Typescript. All right. And then three, define a file to create a server, right? Create the server on the port 8080, okay? And then I want to send content to the client, right? Say, hey, so send HTML document to sends an HTML document that contained is an HTML form, okay? The HTML form must send or post data to the server under filling routes, right? Another server define the routes, define the filling routes, right? To detect, defining the filling routes to detect incoming requests, okay, and logs. It is response, and log it is content. That's all. Pretty simple. This is the basic operations that HTML or this HTTP server does, right? And at the end of the day, what you are doing over and over. Okay, so let's get into this and say, okay, here let me initialize the project. This is it. Let me do this. npm init with option yes, so say yes to everything. All right, then I want to install now Typescript. So Typescript here. Okay, let's go to install that, my friend, on my computer here. It recommends to go whether it's npm, jar, or pmp to download that. I'll go with pmp. All right, I already have that installed. The idea is that this is a package manager that instead of every time that you are downloading is this library, And if you do that across different projects, so it saves space on disk by having a content addressable table of package. It's just a fancy way to say, hey, instead of any time that you now create a project and create a basket of all of this dependency for each one of those projects, so it's going to create now a single basket, right? That is going to have now is the specific version installed, and somehow map that to the project that needs that specific dependency version. So that's the role of the PNPN, which acts like a manager as well, right? So in any case, PNP, I think I already installed that. I hope it doesn't throw any errors. Let's go to verify here the version of Node 20. I should upgrade that to 22 because right now Node.js is currently at the 24. Oh my god, so yeah, we should go to 2020, 22. All right. So let's stick with this version. Okay. Let me also install now is Typescript here using PNPN install Typescript. All right. And save that as a dev dependency, right? There you got it. So it create now the package JSON and the package log, so that's good. And then I'm going to create now the server. So I'm gonna do that by creating a file here. All right, and it's called this server.ts, right? Now this server.ts, because I want to create this HTTP server locally for us. I do have now a model in Node called the HTTP that allow me to create that server, right? So let me take a quick look at the wiki here under the docs and do this kind of stuff. Word in the French stuff. HTTP, exactly. Let's gonna create this HTTP playing. I don't want to rely on security features right now. So, you know, it's like just creating is this. Yep. And so after I create this HTTP, okay, say HTTP, that's interesting that it doesn't give me is the auto completion feature that I think that I expected. Cannot find the name HTTP. Do you need to install the definition for that? Oh, this is one of the things that I love about this Typescript server that is running on my ID. It's telling me, hey, we need to have the types for this project, or at least for this environment. Do you want me to install that? Please be my guest. No, but please be my guest here, right? It's gonna reuse that. So okay, that's good. So what it can do is to close this, don't save that, reopen the server, or in this case the file, and now have access to the import here and say, hey, node, right, HTTP, okay, and then if I now go into here, I have access to all of the things that it allowed me to access to. That's interesting. You say, no, it doesn't. Why not? Cannot find the no HTTP. Do you need to install the and then node and then nodes to type fields in your TypeScript configuration. Oh, and then add nodes. Thanks for this. Thanks for this. So that's interesting. So after I install TypeScript, I need to initialize TypeScript, right? And that's going to change all the order of all of this thing here. Give me a second here. All right. So here we are, right? Initialize the TypeScript, initialize the file to create a server, diggy. And it already like fix it. Okay. So now let me create the TypeScript here. And again, I do wanna could not resolve the path of init with the extension ts. The file is in the program because root files specified for compilation. That's interesting. Oh, so let me get rid of this. It's like some errors here on the file. You got it. Unknown compiler option. Okay. If I say TypeScript init, could not resolve the path init with the extension. No problem, no problem. I just want to run that or to initialize the project. Okay. Oh yes, TypeScript npm TypeScript init, right? With all of this is a unknown option. It say the same. Could not resolve the path init. Oh, but I do want is to TypeScript init. I do want to set up the okay. Okay, it's with the flag. Hey compiler, I want to initialize a project here. So now I create a configuration file for me, right? And they have all of the configurations that right now is not something that I'm going to go over this. Unfortunately, it doesn't say the version of this, only in the package log.json. So we're using is now the latest 5, version 6. Okay. And then I need is to here, if I try to now have access to the node, if I hover here, okay, if I hover here, it says you need to add to the typing field to your TypeScript config. So I already download those types, all right, here with the TypeScript node, and then somehow I need to make the TypeScript compiler aware of this. The question is that where do I make you aware of this? Okay, and then add the node to types field in your TypeScript config. To type field, right? So type fields. Or to the types here. Specify the type package, including in the source file. So under the types, it has a collections of them, and if I pass this as a string, right? I'm assuming that you should be taking that. Right. So now, since I am here now, the ID, the server that is running TypeScript for me for in VS Code is say, okay, now you have access. So I recognize is this. So that's interesting because now I can have access to all the possible options that this model have. And in my case, I want to create the server, right? And if I create now the server, okay, it say, hey, I require you to, and this is one of the things it gives me these two options, right? Returns a new instance of a server. That's right. So import, you can say import HTTP, but I want to be more specific about that. You can say, hey, let's go to create a server here, and this is, it say, hey, I'm going to now, once I create a server, I can define is a callback function where I'm going to, once I detect an incoming request, whatever incoming request is, I can do something like this, right? You can say, giving the example here, giving the example here, you say, this one, I want to write the headers, right? I want to write on the response, so you can also duplicate identifier response is because this is request and the response, okay? Now I can say, hey, on the response, let me write this header here. Content type is the application JSON, and I'm going to send back as this piece of information, right, as a JSON. So I'm sending this object over that, and then I end the connection here. So this is what I'm gonna do anytime that I'm listening any incoming requests. Okay, but now I need to define here what we did is just to create is a server. All right, what we did is just to create the server's instance, but now I need to execute this server. So today you say, okay, let's go into now is listen. All right, start listening for incoming connections. So it gives you now a couple examples here, right? You can now pass, for example, the port and the host name, right? In my case, I prefer to pass the port here and say, hey, this is the port 8080, right? Or the path like this. You can say, hey, this is now the path that I want to start to listen to, and then the backlog number, which is, well, the port, right? And then now the listener here, which is, well, what you're gonna do once you start listening to this incoming request. You say, hey, console.log, server is running. So server is running on port 3000, right? So let me save this. So after I create now is the file for this and create the server at that port, okay, I can run that and say npm that's interesting. I can say, if I go back here to the package JSON here, and then on the script, define now a script to say, hey, this will be now the star, okay, and say, or you can say something like more as the convention, and say def npm def, right, is have this. I mean, is I do want to now run the Typescript compiler, but locally, right? and start to so compile the server.ts, right? And after that, I do want to now generate is the file here. So for example, is the index.js, and it's gonna run this node as it is, right? Node index.js. So this, in theory, we are saying that, hey, Typescript compiler, after you evaluate this file as it works, generate is a file here, all right, with the same name. Let me see if I be explicit. So generate declaration, generate the Typescript definition or the maps. Okay, declaration there. No, it's more like the output for this, which is root there. You do that here, right? The root directory and the output directory, right? Which is output directory. Emit bond, not emit helper, declarations, preserve values. Yeah, but what is the output? Output file. Exactly, specify the file that bundles the all outputs here, or specify an output folder for all the emitted files. So I can say is this, okay, and they now run that command, say run def to run that, and is present but it will be node loaded. File specified on the command using node to skip this error. That's interesting. Is present but will not be loaded if are specified on the command line, but will not be loaded if files are specified on the command line. Okay, but no, okay, so run that by default, right? So no input were found, the config specific path, and exclude path here. So it's telling me that no input were found in the config file. Specify include path. Okay, so it is include path, right? On the include, what it is on the include path. Include path out there. JavaScript support, emit, okay. Type check-ins here, incompleteness, emit JavaScript modules, and the target here. Incremental compose for projects, and that's interesting. It's going to ignore config if I pass now a file. If I pass now a file here, right? It's I'm going to ignore that, okay? Or it's is present but will be not loaded if files are specified on command line. Use ignore config to skip this error. That's interesting. That's very, very interesting that you tell me that, right? Ignore config. now the compiler say, hey, there's a couple things here. I don't know what the, okay, you know, it's running is this. I don't have is the type for this. Can you be more explicit about that? I can cheat here by saying is by going here into definition, say no HTTP. Cannot find the no HTTP. Do you need to install is this? I already installed that. But somehow it's not able to detect that, right? Exactly. So that's interesting because I already added to that under the type nodes, but somehow it's not able to identify them. So should I need to rerun the server here? Let me restart the server by saying is Typescript sorry, is by saying Typescript restart the Typescript server. It's still on that. It cannot recognize this, and it's because I'm passing is that ignore config. And that to me is quite puzzling. Exactly, is present but will not be loaded if files are specified on command line. And if I try to run the compiler here only, it say no input were found in the file here. Include path were here. Include path in the config here. You know, include path. Or on the include, right? Include path. Include path. Where in the French toast is the include path, bro? Specify the names allowed to import include files inline source, and that's interesting. For the language environment for the models, specify the base directory to resolve non-relative model name. Okay, and the path. Type roots directories, and the path out there exactly. So I wanted you generate here all of those files, but it says there is no include. So if I look at this spec, particularly the ts config spec, right? And I do want to now add is the entry point, right? Which is the entry point. What is the entry point? So yeah, the entry point or the include. Okay, include. Okay, you can specify what is the files. All right, so that's interesting. So I can say is, hey, what is the file that I want to specify? Okay, so what is the file that I want to specify, right? The file property, it doesn't exist. Okay. Or you can include, specify an array of file names and a pattern to include in the programs. That's interesting. So include is not there. Include is not here. So no problem. I can say here is include, right? Include, okay, and specify is the collection or the pattern here to say, well, any file that live under here, I want you to include that, right? So now the compiler can actually detect that. Unknown compiler option. That's interesting. Where the include live? That's like my question. Yeah, where are the under the compiler options? If file is specified, otherwise it's this. That where can I specify that? Include and exclude support wildcards. Yeah, but at which entry point, you know? Because it's telling me that, hey, I don't support that here. And that's interesting. So where do you support that? Which structure, which position do you support include, right? Include, right? Yeah, where do you support that? That's the question. Hello. Include. What about here and say include? Exactly, it's not here. Okay, so you just tell me where can I look at this, you know? So make it simple, please. Include here. Make it please simple. Make it please simple. Make it simple. Where can I define is on the compiler option. Where can I comply? Where can I put is the include, my friend? Jesus, why so? Oh crap. Why? Can you please allow me to include, please? Include, my friend? Can you? Oh my god, I don't want to kind of have this file for you. Include config. I don't want to have this kind of file with you. No. Definitely not. It's like Jesus, French those guys. Why were you so fighting, you know? Why? And on the compiler, include, and then it said exclude. So now it's like they deprecate include. So now they call it file or list files. Print names for this. Oh my god, it doesn't support that. Oh my god, it doesn't support because it has outside of the compiler option. That's right. So it's include, right? Include. Now, there you got it. If I do this, you got it. So now if I run the server, it say no inputs were found. Specify include, so I need to pass is like a wildcard here. So diggy of any file here, right? Just grab any file here, right? And again, still the same. Come on, don't make me include and exclude. All right, whatever is on the no models. All right, I do want to include those files. And you are very quite annoying. You're very quite annoying here. Okay. Nope. Specify includes. password this and exclude password node. Found one error. Input nowhere found. So do I need to be more explicit about that? So I can say is find here the server.ts, right? And now it say, well, it throw an internal error, which is quite odd. Yeah, it throw an internal error here, but it generates the file here, right? Generate the right file here. I'm assuming it's because when I'm trying to run Node here, it's a cannot find models here. Perhaps, but this is now more like a Node things stuff. So what about if I tell the compiler to generate now different options here? Let's say something more friendly to ES20, right? So generate that and try to run that. Nope, it's not. Does not. What if I tell them to say, hey, well, please, can you generate something more ES next for that? Okay. What it generates now, I don't think, let me delete this. Yeah, and it's still with that, right? And it's something that now it won't, it doesn't work, right? And I cannot find model of index.js because it's trying to look at the index. That's right. So it is the server.js. So now this will run as expected. And it say, hey, unhandled error event, file already exists, error event server instance. Okay. Error listen exists, file already exists, file already exists. All right. So this is what I want you to do. So now the server is running on port 3000. All of this is just to set up a server from the scratch using Typescript. So I see how the things actually works behind the scenes. So I'll be right back. Please stand by. All right, and we're back. So, so now that I create is this server in Node 20 here, right? So the port is now running on port 3000. We can make the things more intuitive, but for our case, that'll be all, right? Now, instead of sending is a hello world, all right? So if I go back real quick to the browser, right? Here, and then I navigate to that and say, we can say local host port 3000, port 8080, right? I think is that is port 3000. Sorry, my bad. Port 3000, right? So now the server, when it detects, so when that computer, in this case that I'm running locally, when that computer detects that incoming request via the Node.js layer, which is this JavaScript environment that allows to write this server-side application using JavaScript and expose certain features that we can interact with the OS. the manager, the resource manager, right? And they it say this is the operations that you can do. Particularly in the HTTP, it's is this. Hey, let me now pass this. Let me now allow you to detect incoming HTTP requests, all right, which is something that is built on top of the OS, right? And then when I detect something, I'll notify you, right? So in this case, I make this HTTP request. The server detects that at that particular port, right? Because if I as you see before, well, if I call a different port, there's nothing listened to. There's nothing serving content. There is not an HTTP on that port, right? So now it reply with this. So, but instead of this, I do want to reply now is with an HTML document. So the sequence to do that, right? If I go here, is that if I am here, where it is, on the README, right? So now that I create a server, I need to somehow send an HTML document that contains this HTML form. Let's get into this. Let me stop the server. Let me say, hey, I want to create now is this index.html, which traditionally this live under the public folder, right? Say public folder. I think it will fail because it doesn't recognize that file. So there is no folder there. So make dir, you say, hey, make dir this public folder, right? And then inside of that, I want to have access to the public folder and then create this file called index.html, right? So if I go to the index.html, I don't have anything here. So I can generate something from scratch, right? Or be explicit about it. But this is a good and great opportunity. This is a great opportunity for me to explore now the HTML spec. Let's get into this. The HTML spec here. Okay. Let's let me show my screen real quick. There you go. So the living standard HTML. All right. So I know I thought that I can do this in the in 25 minutes, but it has become quite cumbersome to do that. But I'll try to make this quick intro pretty fast. So only at least in the next half an hour, which right now we are at the minute 15 of this recording. Almost minute 50 of this recording. And yes, so this is the introduction, right? Where does this specification fit? Is this HTML, background, audience? Yeah, help me here. And then so after I look at this, right, in HTML versus syntax, XML, that's a good one. A quick introduction to HTML, right, in securing applications. Okay, there you got it. This is it. This is it. And then the common infrastructure, right? The terminology, parallelism. Okay. Ooh, good. Let's get into this. I didn't expect to do this, but yeah, here we are. Okay, so where does this specification fit? Okay, this specifications define a big part of the web platform in a lot of detail. It is placed in web platform specification stack relative to other specifications. Can be best summed up as the follow. So HTML is the faucet, so the thing that you can interact with, and then you have as a user, and then you have now the IDB, fetch, CSP, AV1, Opus, and PNG. So these are like formats and some techniques. HTTP, which is the protocol of communication, as well as the TLS, how this data is going to be transmitted among devices, particularly in a secure way. That's a good question here. TLS. Okay, the transport security layer, exactly, which is a successor of the SSL. TLS is the basic technique. The HTTP protocol is. Okay. If I go to this, okay, now this is looking at the working group. Transport layer security protocol, the core security protocol of the internet. Are you new to the TLS, looking for a particular specification, or in search of a summary or related academic research? This link below should get you started. Active and related document and summary of formal analysis and related research. Okay, there you got it. This page collates research relevant to TLS, and it is development through the years. It may be incomplete. Okay, but okay, look, holy moly. Okay. Transport layer security. Oh, this is the repo for this. The TLS WG, transport layer security. Got it. Okay. What? Cool. So here we are. This is the README. This is the wiki for the grouping work documentations and information that don't fall into existing project. The overview to do README 7 years ago. It seems like they are not that dedicated to implementations. In fact, what is the scope of this working group? It's concerned itself in the maintaining of the core TLS protocol. That's what I love about protocols. Is in set of rules to do the specific stuff. What's out of the scope, right? I have an idea to TLS-W. What is the best way to see if others are interested in? And how do I interact with the TLS working group list? How do I register code points to LS cipher security extension? That's right. Will my proposal require formal analysis before accepting here? In general, okay. And again, what I really care about is this. So this is all of the research, and it's interesting because it put all of this all of the heavy lifting and work from the beginning of using encryption for authentication in large network computers. This is the origin of this particular paper. Again, I'm not gonna get into the details here, but this is pretty much what I want to build, right? It's a form, you know, and this is communications. Encryption PDF, right? Using encryption for authentication in large network of computers. So, a linear sieve algorithm for finding prime numbers and the selection of optimal tab settings, and there you got it, right? So the okay. So this is it, right? This is one of the original paper for this transport layer security. Remember, very quickly, we want is to now send data in all of these different computers that are connecting into this network, particularly the TCP and IP. But this data that we're sending is plain text, all right? So now, over the years, there has been, so the barrier of entry for a lot of these new folks has lowered dramatically, that everybody now can, or most of them, can now temper in the network in their own benefits. So we need to actually make sure to how can we safely send data from one place to another without this interception, or if they intercept that, they don't know what the French toast it means, right? This is part of the encryption. So not only that, I'm looking here at how to send data here with fetch, all right? Data like also images, videos and output. Oh my God, what the French toast here? No, come on. Come on, get real. Come on, get real. So not only this, right? Ooh, holy fuck. What the French toast wrong with you? Let me close this. Yeah, because it's like you got it stuck. So not only that, things related to, can you see what I'm, yeah. So not only things, oh my God. So not only things related to research on this document, like text plain, or multimedia, like image here in this case, and videos and audio, okay? But also is how this document is gonna be shared. So using now this particular protocol over this secure way or encrypted way to transmit data over these network computers, using now the DOM specifications to define as an event model for interacting with the document, with the DOM nodes, and how to cancel, the way of how these streams are going to be represented, the platform that you are going to use to now, well, look at this document, right? What are the type of contents that we can send over the cable and identify those? So multi-internet, is mail internet multi, I don't know what the MIME stand for. Multi-purpose, got it. Multi-purpose internet mail extensions, right? So here we have things like applications, application in JSONs, or application.text HTML, or application JSONs. Again, what are the format of this data that we want to send over, or resource, right? So we have now the URL. It's like, how can we now identify as a particular resource, not only HTML, but also is any other resource that live in a computer, right? So those common resources are, well, image, video, audio, text files, and also is computers, and those computers can have or can host web servers, database, you know, and then you also have the XML, which is extended markup language, again, something that I'm going to see that later on, and then JavaScript to provide now this interactivity, and how we are going to decrypt or encrypt now is these symbols, right? So that's a lot. And also to mention is that how this document we're gonna look like. What are the elements that we can draw here, right? Or even in the mathematical expressions. And what are the jobs that we can run in the background to do, for example, catching data while the server is browsing to a or requesting a web page or a document, right? So I know that that's a lot. So let's go to what we really care, which is the HTML, which is the faucet. Okay, the thing that you can interact with. Everything else is just plumbing. It's interesting how they describe this. So is this HTML5? This section is non-normative. In short, yes. In more length, the term HTML5 is widely used as a buzzword to render the modern web, to refer to modern web technologies, many of which thought by no means all are developers. Okay, many of which. Okay, HTML is just a buzzword to refer to modern web technologies. Okay, to refer to web technologies, right? So all of the things that I mentioned here before, and many of which are developed at the Web Hypertext Application Technology Working Group. And this particular pattern is something that you're gonna see a lot here. So this document is one such. Others are available from the What You See standard overview. So if I click here, they are the one who now describing is this, right? The standards for which it makes this possible. Okay. File system, HTML. The HTML standard is a kitchen sink full of technologies for the web. It's interesting that they use this term sink for this. It includes the core markup language for the web, HTML, as well as numerous API like web workers, local storage, etc. Okay, good, got it. So it's also describing things like this. It's an interface definition that can be used to describe interfaces that are intended to be implemented by web browsers, right? So as I look up now the background, HTML is the World Wide Web coarse markup language. Originally, HTML was primarily designed as a language for semantically describing scientific documents, which is interesting. Okay, this was a project made by Tim Berners-Lee when he worked at the oh my god, at the collider, Hallison Colliders. Wait, what? Hallison Colliders. I don't know why. And well, initially was to describe scientific papers. I don't know why these things like get stuck sometimes. Okay. Yeah, it's to me quite puzzling here. Why sometimes this happens? Like this right now, you know? There's some weird behavior with this web app or with this document, you know? It's like getting stuck here, you know? It's like it gets stuck there. Well, in any case, okay. So the background. right? So it was originally created for describing scientific documents, but now it has become to be a more generally purpose things. Has enabled it to be adapted over the subsequent years to describe a number of other type of document and even applications. The audience. This specification is intended for authors of document and a script that use the features defined in this specification. Implementers of tools that operate on page that use the features defined in this spec. An individual wishing to establish the correctness of documents or implementation with respect to the requirements of this spec. This document is probably not suitable for readers who do not already have at least passing familiarity with web technology, as in place it sacrifices clarity for precision and brevity for completeness. Mm, 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 mm. More approachable tutorials and authoring guides can provide gentle introduction to this topic. In particular, familiar with basic DOM is necessary. This is part of the spec that describes the model, event, and interrupt event, and the DOM or notes in the document of the more technical part of this spec. An understanding of the web IDL, which is the spec that this web browsers should implement, right? What are the features these web browsers should implement based on this standard? The other is now what is the protocol where we're going to use to send hypertext over the cable. I'm not quite familiar with XML, which is an extended markup language. Okay. Unicode, which is how you representing is particularly a set of characters. Okay, or in other words, how you represent now symbols in the machines. Symbols like alphabets from Latin derived language, or Cyrillic or hands-based characters, or Farsi, right? The character encodings, which is something that I'm not quite familiar with. Okay. Mm-hmm. 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 So what I describe here is a mix between the character encoding, okay, and the Unicode. So character encoding is the umbrella term for this, okay. And then you have now this code point. A code point is the value or a position at a character in code character set, right? So you have now all of these different character sets, right? Or character encoding, okay, which is a way of how you transform is a character or a symbol into a digital representation. That's what this character encoding is all about. Or using a numeric value to represent each character or each symbol of a writing script, right? That's okay, that makes sense to that. And this representation, right now, the current state of affair in JavaScript or in the web is using now the code point, particularly the UTF or the Unicode, right? We're using currently now UTF-16. That makes a lot of sense when I look at this. And then you have now JavaScript that provide this behavior the CSS to style in this document, and will also be helpful in place, but it's not essential. So all of the things that I mentioned to describe, okay, is just to make sense of what we are going to build here, which is a simple HTML form in this HTML using this faucet. So this section is not normative. This specification is limited to providing a semantic level. I'll be right back. Give me a second. All right, and here we are, right? So, there you got it. Reading about the scope, that's right. So this is what are the things that you need to understand. The DOM, what the DOM is, the web the web interface, the web IDL, the web interface definition language, which is just a fancy way to say, hey, this is the thing that you need to create, expose. So now whoever works with you or whoever plays with you, well, this is the thing that you can do as a browser, right? And those are, for example, is how can I explore the network? How can I render animations? How can I style things? How can I animate documents? How can I play or listen to music or videos? Okay. How can I transmit data? And I know I am repeating myself. Sorry about that. But I just want to galvanize that. So how now these documents are going to send over from one computer to another, and what is the markup language we're gonna use, and also to extend the functionality here, right? Which is the XML. All right, like this, right? So this is a language for putting all of these labels, and it is a meta language. Let me read this on English better. It's a markup language and a file format for storing, transmitting, and reconstruction data. So I'm gonna store this document on disk or on memory. I can also now transmit this document here, and then on the other side I can reconstruct that in a human readable form, right? It's defined a set of rules for encoding documents in a format that is both human readable and machine readable, right? So that's a good overview of all of this, right? You know, so that's XML. I also mentioned is the Unicode. So is this table that has all of these symbol and characters mapping to one representation or to one collections of values to a symbol. This process is character encoding, okay? And in order to provide now interactivity to this document, you do that with JavaScript and to styling CSS. So, as I move on, right, this specification is limited to providing a semantic level markup language. Is associated and associating semantic level scripting APIs for authoring accessible page on the web, ranging from static documents to dynamically application. So there is a lot of jargon here. You know, for example, it's like dynamic application, static documents, dynamic applications, authoring accessible page, right? Associated semantic level scripting APIs, right? And the other is the providing a semantic level markup language here. So four concepts here, right? That this specification provides is a semantic level markup language that is associated to the semantic level scripting APIs, Okay. So the way how do you define this, and the way how do you write this document, and how that is connected to this interactivity features, right? Via this semantic level scripting APIs. For authorizing accessible web page, which there is already a consortium that is looking at that. The web authoring guidelines. I don't make that up. Web authoring, authoring. Oh my God! It's web authoring. Let me see. Can pull that up. Real quick here. Yeah, web authoring. Web authoring tools. Web. Web authoring interface. I think it is. Oh my God! I don't know why I lose that track of this. Exactly, authoring tools, but for this. Making the web accessible, but specifically, yeah, specifically, is this one, authoring tool accessibility guidelines, right? Talking about accessibility, okay? Particularly the web content accessibility guidelines here. And accessibility fundamentals here. Standard guidelines. Well, this is for Web Accessibility Initiative, but it's WIRA. WIRA. Is this one? Is this one? Right? Authoring practice guide. Good. 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 Yeah, authoring practice guide. So, why am I mentioning this? Okay, because this is part of the four things that is the scope of this document, which is something that at the end of the day, if you're getting, if somebody hire you to create these applications, this static document or dynamic applications, okay, you need to know this, right? You need to know the semantic level markup and how that is associated with the semantic level scripting APIs. So in other words, is that how the this markup is associated with the JavaScript APIs or this functionality, okay, for authoring accessible page. So, for example, in this case, like this, and the term authoring is like just part of the publishing industry, okay. But the thing is, you want to build this user interface or these documents following is this accessible guidelines. For example, from the area or accessible rich internet applications. And this is the practice that we follow. This is the pattern that we find out anytime that we need to build certain kind of applications, right? So from accordions, from the UI. So accordions, alerts, dialogues, breadcrumbs, buttons, carousel, card, checkboxes, radio button is another one, combo boxes, disclose, show and hide, link, list box. You get the idea, right? Radio group, sliders, things like that, you know, tabs, toolbar, tooltip, 3 view, 3 grid, window splitter, you know, all of this to make those document, okay, to make those documents static or dynamic useful. Okay. Interesting. So the scope of this specification does not include providing mechanism for media-specific customizations of presentations. What in the French code means this? This mechanism for media-specific customization of presentations. Okay, by media specific you mean is that different display or different media that you can represent this document. Also, default rendering rules for web browsers are included at the end of the spec, and several mechanisms for hooking into CSS are provided as part of the language. So CSS actually is the one who look at the media presentation, how this document is going to look on paper or on virtual device, and also audio is another one. The scope of this specification is not to describe an entire operating system, in particular the hardware configuration. Exactly. So I don't care which OS you use, in particular the hardware configuration, software, managing manipulation tools, and application the user will be expected to use with high-end workstation on a daily basis are out of the scope. In terms of application, this specification is targeted specifically at applications that will be expected to be used by users on an occasional basis or regularly, but from disparate locations with low CPU requirement. Example of such applications include online purchasing system or e-commerce, searching system like Google, game, especially multiplayer online games, public telephone books or address books, listings, communication software, email clients, instant messaging, discussion software, or document editing software. This is quite interesting because at the end of the day, this is the product that we can build here, right? Or at least this is the product that it fits on into this bucket, right? So whether if you are building dynamic apps like e-commerce or searching system, or like e-commerce, searching systems, games, listing applications like where I'm currently working on, listing app, communications applications like email, messaging, and all that kind of stuff, communications, and editing documents. So for example, Figma is one of them, or WordSprint. So a little bit of history, got it? For its first 5 years, 1990 and 1995, HTML went through a number of revision and experience of a number of extensions, primarily host first at CERN, and then at the IFTF. With the creation of the Web CCC, HTML development changed venue again. Its first aborted attempt at extending HTML in 1995, known as the HTML3. They made way to a more pragmatic approach, and remember that this document was initially for scientific documents, scientific papers. But it has become so powerful that now they have to evolve pretty quickly. As you can see, in just 7 years, it evolved into HTML4 and quickly followed that same year. The following year, the W3C membership decided to stop evolving HTML and instead begin to work on XML, or extend markup HTML. This effort started with the reformulation of HTML4 in XML, known as the XHTML1, which added no new feature except new serialization, in which was completed in 2000. After XML1's focus, the W3C focus turned to make it easy for other working groups to extend XML TSA. Under the banner HTML modularization, in parallel with this, also work on a new language that was not compatible with early HTML and XHTML language, calling it XHTML2. Around the time of HTML evolution was stopped in 1998, part of the API of HTML developed by browser vendors were specified and published under the name DOM Level 1. But this was developed by browser vendor. Interesting. And DOM Level 2 Core and DOM Level 2 HTML. Starting in 2000 and culminating in 2003. These efforts then petered out with what the hell is this? Peter, decrease of faith gradually before coming to an end. Peter. Oh my god, for real? If these efforts then petered out or fade out, with some DOM level 3 specification published in 2004, but the working group being closed before all of the level 3 drafts were complete. In 2003, the publication of Xform, a technology which was supposed as the next generation of web forms, and it's interesting, which is what I'm gonna do in today's video, sparked a renewal interest in evolving HTML itself. Rather than finding replacement for it, this interest was born from the realization that XML deployment as a web technology was limited to the entire new technologies, like RSS and later Atom, rather than as a replacement for existing deployed technologies, which HTML and a proof of concept showed that it was possible to extend HTML forms to provide many of the features that Xform introduced, without requiring browsers to implement rendering engines that were incompatible with existing HTML web page. Was the first result of this renewed interest. At this early stage, while the draft was already publicly available, and input was already being solicited for all sources, this specification was under Opera software copyright. The idea of the HTML evolution should be reopened was tested at a W3C workshop in 2004, where some of the principles that underlie the HTML5 works described below, as well as the aforementioned early draft proposal covering just form-related features. It's interesting because this is also something that React, which is the core of this video, most of these features that they have deployed are now for forms. Were presenting in W3C, joining in Mozilla and Opera. The proposal was rejected off the ground that the proposal conflicted with the previous chosen direction of the web evolutions. The Web3 staff and membership vote to continue developing XML-based replacement instead. Shortly after, interesting. Now let's continue to develop XML-based replacement. No, and the best thing, this is something that I learned so far. So you don't replace something, you just work on what works, and then improve on there, right? Jointly announced that their intent to continue working on the effort under the umbrella of a new venue called this one. Okay, shortly after Apple, Mozilla, Opera jointly announced their intent to continue working on the effort under the umbrella of a new venue called this. Okay, so Mozilla, Opera, and Apple, they great together to do this, right? The Web Hypertext Application Technology Working Group. A public mailing list was created and the draft was moved to this site. The copyright was subsequently amended to be joined owned by all three vendors and not allowed to reuse the specification. So they set the foundation here. What WG was based on several core principles. In particular, the technology need to be backward compatible because now they have a lot of incentive to build these kind of applications and profit from this. And that specifications and implementation needs to match even if this means changing the specification rather than the implementation. Okay, so let's going to change the specification rather than the implementation because it needs to be backward compatible. And that specification needs to be detailed enough that implementation can achieve complete interoperability without reverse engineering each other. The later requirement is particularly required that the scope of the HTML5 specifications include what has previously been specified in 3 separate documents: HTML4, XML-HT1, DOM-HTML, and DOM-HTML. It also, okay, the latter requirement in particularly required that the scope of the HTML5, okay, it includes what previously has been specified in 3 separate documents. So let's going to integrate whatever we have in HTML4, XML, XHTML1, and DOM HTML and DOM2 HTML. It also meant including significantly more detail than has previously been considered to the norm. In 2006, a couple years early of the Facebook come out with React, right? The W3C indicate an interest to participate in the development of HTML5. After all, and in 2007, formed a working group charter to work with the WG on the development of the HTML specs. Apple, Mozilla, and Opera allowed the W3C to publish the spec under the W3C copyright. So they are now passing control to this, to the consortium. And this consortium is made of people that work at all of this company. It's not owned by a single company or individual. It has a board of directors. Over 300 organizations worldwide, and is managed by the board of directors. The board of directors, staff, principal dev of engineering at the MIT, chief of staff, manager of the office and CEO, senior project manager, principal communications, principal team contact, chief deployment, senior system engineer, principal data strategist, director of project and process, senior accessibility content specialist, director training, senior software engineer. Oh, he joins fairly recent. Spec generation and propose. Okay. Oh, spec gen. Okay. Spec generation. Okay, respect by shit. Okay, that's interesting. And well, all of these people here as it is. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And now in AI, it's currently based in Beijing University. Mm-hmm. Maki Sekimoto, Atsushi Shimono. So there are is worldwide. Is worldwide. Director Global Member Relationship. Director W3C Japan. Mm-hmm. Naomi worked at AT&T Japan as a manager of marketing communication for AT&T World Access. She worked on the team that creating an innovative prepaid card, produced publications and bid for design, and developed sales channel. She was awarded of the grand prize for best operation manager. She earned an MBA of international management from Iowa Gaokun University. Mm. So that's interesting. So that's good. Okay, the board of directors. So you have the staff that reports to the management, and the board of directors oversees them. So this is the staff. So this is the staff here. And in the staff you have now the community and also the W3C groups, web standards, and drive. Okay. So the board of director. Yeah, but they don't mention anything about the board of director. They mention about is the staff, but not the board of director. But not the board of director. Consortium member elected board of directors, and they don't put their faces, man. Board of director. Okay, that's fine. So they don't put they put data from him, right? This is for everyone. The groundbreaking memoir for inventor of the World Wide Web, Sir Tim Berners-Lee. This is the story of modern age. Okay. Filled with Sir Tim's characteristic optimism, technical insight, and right humor, this is about the power of technology, boost to fuel or worse instance, and to profoundly shape our life for the better. Got it. Got it. Got it. We went deeply into this rabbit hole. Okay. Let's go back to what I really care. Okay. And that is this, right? So now, so this has becomes like a consortium or a company that is now oversees by a bunch of people that works on the industry at different companies. They respond to the board of members, and yeah, they respond to the board of members, the CEO, or in this case, the staff, right? Reports to them. Yeah, the staff reports to the. This is one of the things that is important. So the staff reports to the management. Okay, the staff reports to the management at W3C here, and the board of directors oversees the management here, right? I got a question here. Where the board of directors came from? The model board of directors originally in 14th and 16th century medieval European joint stock and merchants companies. Etymology origins. A board refers simply to a long plank of table around which important meetings took place. The people. Over time, the name shift from piece to furniture to important people sitting around, leading to the first record use of the board of directors. 1712, according to this. So it's all about these managing organizations. Early historical roots, outsourced government. Okay. Early historical roots. Medieval Europe, early forms of governing board arousing societies of independent merchants in England, such as the Company of Merchants of Istanbul. According to Hofstra University. Outsourced government, early corporations were often government entities in the disguise or had royal chapters. To govern a single authority or a group of overseas was used, imitating government structures. In the 19th century's corporate shift, growth of shareholders as international trade and global business explode in 19th century. Companies attract diverse group of investors. The transition, it became impossible for all investors or stockholders to run the business themselves. The elected board emerges a bridge between the company owner. That's interesting. So I am not able to manage the operation of by myself when I buy shares. Okay. So they elect a board of directors as a bridge between the company owners, the shareholders, and it is daily activities here. A board of directors. Is it again? I know that I'm way off of today's video, but this is kind of the narrative that actually makes sense when you're starting to developing applications, who you are working with, what is the structure, how they look like, right? And why we are doing all of this. So in the case of these company terms, right? At the end of the day, when somebody hires you to, perhaps some of you know this, It's like, duh, of course. I wasn't aware of that until right now, right? It's like, how old do you have when you figuring out that out? Not old enough, I must say. Uh, so this is the structure where I'm in here on developing this kind of applications, right? So I have to report to the management because they hire me as a staff, and this manager is going to they're going to be overseas by the board of directors, right? These CEOs, C-level suites, right? So executive officer, technical officer, information officer, financial officers, or research office, human resource officer, or the operational officers. So all of this, right? They're going to report to this selected, I don't know by who, board of directors. And it's up to this board of directors that they're going to decide where we are going to. What are the things that is going to be done and applied and so on and so forth, right? Mm-hmm. Who elect this? This is a good question. Like, who elect them? Right? Who elect the board of directors in a joint stock company, bro? The specific election process of who is eligible vote depending on the type of organization. Mm-hmm. Okay. So are you a private or are you a public? All right. If you are a public and private, shareholders vote for directors to represent their interests. There you got it. And provide strategic oversight. Often, a nominating committee proposes a slate of candidates, and shareholders vote on them via an ordinary resolution. So they're using as a voting process for electing the board of directors based on the shareholders. For non-profit organizations, the board is usually elected by the organization's full voting members. Co-determined. In certain countries, such as Germany and Sweden, government regulations require that a set fraction of the board be elected directly by the company, workers, or labor union. Mm-hmm. 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 Again, this is according to Wikipedia and Investopedia. Who they are? Okay. Okay. So going back to this. Okay. So the double triple C, or the W3C, the organization is that you have now the staff, the people that actually do the work, that you need to reporting to the management, and they are overseas by the board of directors. So if you are an organization, a non-profit, or so they are overseas by the organization in itself. If this is a public or private joint adventure, so now this is decided by the shareholders. Vote using the voting mechanism here. Mm-hmm. This is why this kind of stuff, these kind of architectures, are very fluid and. Mm-hmm. Okay. So back in 2006 and 2007, the Spec that was owned by Apple, Mozilla, and Opera, okay, so they passed that control as a copyright to this consortium, while keeping a version with the less restrictive license on what WG's site For a number of years, both groups then worked together in 2011. So the consortium and this, right? In 2000, indicating an interest to participate in the development of HTML5. Okay, the DVC indicating an interest to participate in the development of HTML5 after all, and in 2007 formed a working group charter to work with this on the development of HTML5 spec. Apple, okay, so it was the working group or the consortium. So a group of people in the consortium, they find themselves in the need to build or to move on the spec of HTML. This spec was owned prior to 2006 by Apple, Mozilla, and Opera. Right? Where they now focus their attentions to the HTML, and then known as the what working group, and then Apple, Mozilla, and Opera delegate the copyrights to this to the consortium. So now, while keeping a version with the less restrictive license of what site is. But again, they have now a license. For a number of years, both groups then worked together. In 2011, however, the groups came to the conclusion that they have different goals. This is on the emerge of React as a popular technology back then. However, the groups came to the conclusion that they have different goals. The W3C wanted to publish and finish the HTML5, while the what working group wanted to continue working on a living standard for the HTML, continuously maintaining the specification rather than freezing it in a state with known problem, and adding new features and needed to evolve the platform. In 2019, the what working group and the W3 consortium signed an agreement to collaborate on a single HTML going forward. And this is the document. Holy moly. This is a lot in history, man. This is a lot. And again, I didn't even implement the HTML form. You know, it's like, but that's no problem. So that'll be all for this video. Take care.